My parents asked me to leave after dinner. The next morning changed everything. The gravel of the driveway crunched loudly under the tires of my 10-year-old sedan, a sound that seemed to scream failure in a neighborhood where the engines purred like sleeping tigers. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Before we continue, please subscribe and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Your support helps this powerful, life-changing story reach the world. It had been 2 years since I last visited my parents' estate. The sprawling mansion with its ivy-covered walls and towering oak doors looked exactly the same. It was a fortress of wealth, a place where appearances mattered more than reality. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. My suit was clean, but it was off the rack. My tie was a little frayed at the edges. I knew my mother, Eleanor, would notice it within seconds. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. Tonight was my father's 60th birthday. It was a milestone event, and despite the coldness that had defined our relationship for the last decade, I felt an obligation to be there. My brother Julian would be there too. Julian was the golden child, the one who joined my father's investment firm straight out of Yale, the one who drove a Porsche and dated models. I was the disappointment. I was the one who dropped out of business school to find myself, a decision that my father, Robert, had never forgiven. To him, I was a cautionary tale of wasted potential. I opened the car door and stepped out into the cool evening air. The house loomed over me, casting a long shadow. I wasn't just walking into a birthday party, I was walking into a judgment zone. The front door swung open before I could even knock. The butler, a man named Henderson who had worked for us since I was a child, offered me a sympathetic smile. "Good evening, Master Michael," he said softly. "It is good to see you." I nodded, grateful for the one friendly face. "Hi, Henderson. How are they?" I whispered. Henderson hesitated, his eyes darting toward the drawing room. "The mood is spirited. Mr. Julian has just announced his new promotion." Of course he had. Julian always had news. I walked into the drawing room. It was filled with people. Business partners, socialites, and distant relatives who only showed up when there was expensive champagne. My mother was standing by the fireplace, holding a crystal flute. She wore a dress that probably cost more than my annual rent. When she saw me, her smile didn't reach her eyes. It was a practiced, polite grimace. "Michael," she said, her voice carrying across the room. "You made it? And you drove that car?" She gestured vaguely toward the window. "We really must get you something reliable." It was the first dig of the night. "It gets me from A to B, Mom," I said, leaning in to kiss her cheek. She pulled away slightly as if afraid poverty might be contagious. "Where is the birthday boy?" I asked, looking around for my father. "He is in the study with Julian," my mother said, turning back to her guests. "They are discussing the merger. Big things are happening, Michael. Big things." She emphasized the words as if to remind me that I was not part of any big things. I walked toward the study. The heavy oak doors were ajar. I could hear my father's booming laugh. "That's my boy," he shouted. "Vice president at 30. The board is going to eat out of your hand." I pushed the door open. My father was sitting behind his desk, pouring scotch. Julian was leaning against the bookshelf, looking smug. When they saw me, the laughter died instantly. "Happy birthday, Dad," I said, holding out a small gift box. It was a watch, not a Rolex but a vintage piece I had restored myself. I thought it showed care. My father looked at the box but didn't take it. "Put it on the table," he grunted. "We were just talking business. Julian just closed the Anderson deal." Julian smirked. "Hey, Mikey. Still working at that? What is it?" "A repair shop." "I own a small electronics startup," I corrected him. "It's going well." My father rolled his eyes. "Startup. That's code for unemployed, isn't it?" Dinner was announced and we moved to the long dining table. I was seated at the far end, away from the center of conversation, next to a cousin I hadn't seen in years. The table was set with fine china and silver cutlery that gleamed under the chandelier. Servants moved silently, pouring wine and serving courses. My father stood up to make a toast. "To family," he began, raising his glass. "And to legacy. Tonight, I am proud to announce that Julian will officially be taking over the day-to-day operations of Sterling Investments." Applause erupted around the table. Julian stood up, soaking in the adoration. "Thank you, Dad. I won't let you down. We are going to take this company to the moon." He looked down the table at me. "And maybe we can even find a janitorial position for Michael. We keep it in the family, right?" The guests laughed. A polite, cruel tittering that made my ears burn. I gripped my fork, staring at my plate. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell them that Julian didn't know the first thing about actual economics. He only knew how to schmooze. But I stayed silent. I was the guest. I was the failure. I just had to survive dessert. As the main course was cleared, the conversation turned to the economy. One of the investors, a man named Mr. Sterling, no relation, started complaining about the tech sector. "It's a bubble," he declared. "All these kids making apps. No real value." My father nodded in agreement. "Exactly. That's what I tell Michael. Get a real job. Build something you can touch." I couldn't help myself. "Actually," I said, my voice cutting through the chatter, "the tech sector is driving the current market growth. The ROI on software development has outpaced real estate for the last 5 quarters." The table went silent. My father glared at me. "Excuse me," he snapped. "Since when are you an expert? You fix toasters, Michael." "I develop software, Dad," I said, my voice steady. "And the bubble you're talking about is the future. Ignoring it is why your Q3 returns were down 4%. My father's face turned purple. He hated being corrected, especially by me and especially in front of investors. "My returns," he hissed, "are none of your business. You have no idea how the real world works. You live in a fantasy land." "I'm just saying," I continued, pushing my luck, "that Julian's strategy of doubling down on retail bonds is risky. The market is shifting." Julian slammed his hand on the table. "Shut up, Michael. You're jealous. You're trying to embarrass me on Dad's birthday because you have nothing to show for your life." My mother stood up, her napkin clutching in her hand. "Michael, that is enough," she said icily. "We invited you here out of kindness. We did not invite you to insult your brother or your father." She pointed toward the door. "I think it would be best if you left." The command hung in the air. Best if you left. I looked around the table. No one met my eyes. They were all looking at their plates or sipping their wine. I was being evicted from my own family dinner. "You're kicking me out?" I asked quietly. "We are asking you to leave," my father said, refusing to look at me. "You don't fit in here, Michael. You never have. Go back to your apartment. We'll send you some cake." I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Fine," I said. "Happy birthday, Dad. I hope the merger goes exactly as you expect." I didn't say goodbye to anyone else. I walked out of the dining room, down the long hallway and out the front door. Henderson was waiting there with my coat. He looked sad. "I'm sorry, sir," he whispered. "It's not your fault, Henderson," I said. "Take care of yourself." I got into my car. The engine sputtered before turning on, a final insult from the universe. I drove down the driveway, the mansion glowing in the rearview mirror like a golden palace. I felt a mix of anger and sorrow, but underneath it all, there was a strange sense of calm. They had made their choice. They had chosen the lie over the truth. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and dialed a number. It rang twice. "Hello?" a voice answered. "It's Michael," I said. "Execute the purchase. Tonight. Don't wait for the morning bell." I didn't drive back to my apartment. I drove to the city, to the Four Seasons. The valet looked at my car with disdain, but when I handed him a platinum black card, his demeanor changed instantly. I checked into the penthouse suite. I stripped off the cheap suit and took a long hot shower. I stood by the window looking out at the city lights. My family thought I was a failure because I didn't talk about my money. They thought I was poor because I didn't flaunt it. But in the world of code and cryptocurrency, silence is the ultimate power. My startup wasn't a repair shop. It was Nexus Core, a blockchain infrastructure company that had just been acquired for $400 million 3 days ago. I hadn't told them because I wanted to see if they loved me without the money. Tonight I got my answer. I ordered room service, a steak rare, and sat in the silence of the suite. The game was over. Tomorrow the reality would set in. The next morning broke with a gray, drizzling sky. Back at the estate, my parents were likely waking up with hangovers, congratulating themselves on a successful party. I imagined my mother directing the maids to clean up the wine glasses, while my father checked the stock ticker. I sat in the hotel restaurant, sipping coffee, checking my tablet. The notification had come through at 8 a.m. Transaction complete. I imagined the scene. At 9 a.m. sharp, there would be a knock at their door. It wouldn't be a guest. It wouldn't be a delivery. It would be a team of auditors and a representative from the bank. The secret that Julian and my father had been hiding, the massive debt, the leveraged loans they used to maintain their lifestyle, was about to implode. They thought they had time. They thought the Anderson deal would save them. But they didn't know that the Anderson Group had pulled out last night, spooked by a sudden acquisition of their primary debt holder. At the mansion the chaos began. My father was in his study when Henderson knocked. "Sir," the butler said, his voice trembling. "There are people here to see you. They say they are from the bank." My father frowned. "Tell them to call my secretary. I'm busy." "They insist, sir," Henderson said. "They are with the sheriff." My father stormed to the door, ready to yell, ready to use his influence. He opened the door to find 3 men in suits and a uniformed officer. "Robert Hale?" the lead suit asked. "Yes." "Who are you?" "I'm from the Asset Forfeiture Division of Citibank. We are here to serve a notice of default and immediate possession." My father laughed. "Default? You're insane. My son just closed a deal yesterday. We are solvent." "The Anderson deal was cancelled, Mr. Hale," the man said. "And your loans were called in this morning by the new note holder. You are $20 million in arrears." My mother came running down the stairs in her silk robe. "Robert, what is going on?" she screamed. "They say we're bankrupt, Alan," my father shouted, his face draining of color. "Call Julian. Get him here now." Julian arrived 20 minutes later, looking disheveled. He hadn't slept. "Dad, I tried to call you," Julian stammered. "The deal? It fell through. The investors walked." "You said it was done," my father roared, grabbing Julian by the lapels. "You said we were safe." "I lied." Julian cried, breaking down. "I cooked the books, Dad. I needed more time. I thought I could fix it." The truth came out in a torrent. The Porsches, the parties, the success. It was all funded by loans taken out against the house, against the company, against everything. And now the bill was due. "You have 24 hours to vacate the premises," the bank representative said coldly. "The property has been seized." "Vacate?" my mother shrieked. "This is my home. Where are we supposed to go?" "That is not our concern, ma'am," the man said. "I suggest you pack only personal items. Anything of value, art, jewelry, furniture, is now property of the bank." They were destitute. In the span of an hour they had gone from royalty to refugees. My father slumped onto the stairs, his head in his hands. "Who?" he whispered. "Who called in the loans? Who bought the debt?" "A holding company," the representative said. "Zenith Global." The name meant nothing to them. It sounded like just another faceless corporation. They were alone. Their friends from the party would not help them. Socialites despised the scent of failure. By noon the reality had set in. They had no cash. Their credit cards were frozen. They had nowhere to go. My mother was sobbing in the kitchen, packing a small suitcase. "We have to call someone," she wailed. "We can't sleep in the street." "Call your sister," my father said. "She hates us," Mom replied. "What about Michael?" Julian whispered. They all froze. "Michael?" my father scoffed. "He lives in a shoebox. He can't help us." "He has a roof," Julian said. "And he's the only one we haven't borrowed money from. He's family. He has to take us in." The irony was bitter. The son they kicked out less than 24 hours ago was now their only option. My father swallowed his pride, which tasted like ash. "Call him," he ordered my mother. My phone rang. I let it go to voicemail once, then answered the second time. "Hello?" "Michael," was my mother. Her voice was shaking. "Mom? Is everything okay?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. No, it's not. Something terrible has happened. There was a mistake with the bank. We have to leave the house for a few days while the lawyers fix it." She was still lying. "Even now? Leave the house?" I asked. "Yes. We need a place to stay. Just for a night or two. Can we come to your apartment?" I paused for a long moment. I wanted to say no. I wanted to tell them to go to a shelter. But I had a plan. "Sure, Mom," I said. "I can help. But I'm not at my apartment. I'm at my office. Meet me there." I gave her the address of the Zenith Global Tower downtown. They piled into Julian's car, the only one the bank hadn't towed yet because it was leased under a different name. They drove into the city in silence. When they reached the address I gave them, they looked confused. It was a 60-story glass skyscraper, the crown jewel of the financial district. "He works here?" my father asked, looking up. "He must be doing maintenance," Julian muttered. "Or maybe he's a receptionist." They parked and walked into the lobby. It was massive, with marble floors and security guards who looked like Secret Service agents. My father walked up to the front desk. "I'm here to see Michael Hale," he mumbled, feeling out of place in his rumpled clothes. "He works here." The receptionist typed my name into the computer. Her eyes widened. She stood up immediately. Mr. Hale? Yes, of course. Please. Follow me. She didn't give them a visitor badge. She led them past the security turnstiles to a private elevator marked executive access only. Where are we going? My mother asked nervously. Michael must be in trouble if he's on the top floor. Maybe he's being fired, Julian suggested, trying to make himself feel better. The elevator rose rapidly, ears popping as they ascended. It opened directly into a penthouse office suite. The view was breathtaking. The entire city lay beneath them. I was standing by the window wearing a tailored Italian suit watching them enter. The office was sleek, modern, and screamed wealth. My assistant, a sharp woman named Claire, was organizing papers on a desk that cost more than Julian's car. Michael? My father asked, stepping out of the elevator. He looked around, bewildered. What is this place? Why are you here? I turned around. Hello, Dad. Mom. Julian. I didn't offer them a seat. Welcome to Zenith Global. Zenith Global? Julian whispered. His face went pale. The company that bought our debt? The company that foreclosed on us? Yes, I said calmly. My company. The silence in the room was absolute. My father looked like he had been punched in the gut. You own this? He stammered. But, the repair shop. I told you I owned a startup, I said. You assumed it was a repair shop because you couldn't imagine me being successful. You heard what you wanted to hear. I walked over to my desk and picked up a file. I bought your debt this morning, Dad. I bought it because if I hadn't, the bank would have sold the house to a developer who plans to bulldoze it. I saved the asset. You saved us? My mother cried, rushing forward. Oh, thank God. Michael, I knew it. I knew you were special. She tried to hug me, but I stepped back. I saved the asset, I corrected her. I didn't say I saved you. Her smile faltered. What do you mean? We're family. Family? I laughed dryly. Last night at dinner you told me I didn't fit in. You told me to leave because I embarrassed you. You chose Julian's lies over my truth. I looked at Julian. He was shrinking into the corner. You knew the company was failing, Julian. You let Dad humiliate me while you stole from him. I was trying to fix it, Julian whimpered. You were trying to maintain an image, I said. And now the image is gone. Michael, please, my father said, his voice cracking. He looked old for the first time. We made mistakes. I see that now. But we are your parents. You can't let us be homeless. You have all this. He gestured around the room. You have so much. We just want to go home. That house isn't your home anymore, I said firmly. It belongs to Zenith Global. It will be sold to recoup the losses from Julian's mismanagement. Sold? My mother gasped. But where will we live? I pulled 3 keys out of my desk drawer and tossed them onto the glass surface. They clattered loudly. I bought a condo, I said. 3 bedrooms. In the suburbs. It's fully paid for. It's modest, but it's safe. They stared at the keys. A condo in the suburbs was a death sentence for their social status. A condo? My mother whispered, horrified. Michael, we can't live in a condo. What will our friends say? Your friends aren't answering your calls, Mom, I reminded her. This is the offer. A roof over your heads, food on the table, and a monthly stipend, enough to live but not enough to party. No more galas. No more Porsches. I looked at Julian. And you're going to work. Work? Julian asked. Doing what? I have a friend who runs a logistics center, I said. He needs warehouse staff. It's hard work. Minimum wage. But it's honest. I can't work in a warehouse. Julian shouted. I'm a vice president. You're an unemployed fraud who is lucky I'm not pressing charges for embezzlement, I snapped. Take the job or take the street. Those are your options. Julian looked at Dad, waiting for him to intervene. But my father just stared at the floor. He finally understood who held the power. We'll take it, my father whispered. Robert, my mother hissed. We have no choice, Ellen, he yelled at her, tears in his eyes. Look at us. We have nothing. He is the only reason we aren't sleeping under a bridge tonight. My father reached out and took the keys. His hand was shaking. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in years. I underestimated you, Michael. Yes, I said. You did. Go, I said. The address is on the tag. Henderson will meet you there with your personal items. I hired him, by the way. He manages my estate now. They turned to leave. My mother was weeping softly. Julian looked like a ghost. My father stopped at the elevator doors. "Will you come visit?" he asked softly. "Will we see you?" "Maybe," I said. "When you've learned to value the person, not the portfolio." The elevator doors slid shut, cutting them off from my world. I walked back to the window. The rain had stopped and the sun was breaking through the clouds. I looked down at the city, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. I had spent my whole life trying to prove I was worthy of their love. I realized now that I didn't need it. I had built my own life, my own success, and my own family of friends and colleagues who respected me. The next morning really had changed everything. It stripped away the illusions. It leveled the playing field. And as I stood there, the CEO of my own destiny, I finally felt at peace. I wasn't the boy who was asked to leave dinner anymore. I was the man who owned the table.